Welcome everyone to Melfuzz TV. I am Peter and today I'm going to be talking about The Penguin episode 7. It's called Top Hat. So spoilers for the episode as always. And things are very much ramping up now. I thought this was a pretty strong episode. I have seen some critiques online, which I can kind of understand, but I don't think it like what I'm seeing that people are complaining about is much of an issue for me, because I think what's working about the show is working so well. Again, Sophia has like a couple of really great standout scenes. There's something just insanely compelling about that character and the way she's being written and the different conversations she's just having with various people have been so good these past couple of episodes. And of course, the flashbacks for Penguin's childhood, and we're seeing the younger version of his mother, played by an actress who was in The Deuce and The Leftovers. So yeah, HBO kind of regular, I guess. What's her name? Emily Mead's the name of the actress. And the kid playing the young Penguin, also very good. Really nailed the mannerisms that Colin Farrell's been doing and stuff like that. It reveals one big thing early on in the episode. And I think to me this episode is obviously about the ramping of things up. It's got a couple of big set pieces, but it really is about that reveal about Penguin's past and how that is potentially about to be used in the finale, which is, I think, because the main critique I saw online about this episode, sometimes I'll take 5-10 minutes and see what the feeling is after I've watched the episode, see how people are reacting to it. And I think what was sticking out to me is some people were frustrated that the end of the last episode was this cliffhanger saying that Penguin's mother was in danger, and they felt that this week's ending was the same thing again, that we're ending with Penguin's mother being held captive, in danger, and what's going to happen next. I kind of feel... I feel that's a little disingenuous as to what the cliffhanger is this week. I don't think the cliffhanger this week is that the Penguin's mother's in danger. I think Francis, while the bad guys might kill her, I actually think at this point Penguin's going to be the one to kill her, and I'll say why in a minute. But it feels to me more like no, the threat this week is what they have discovered from Francis. I think the implication I was getting is that through the therapy that the other guy, what's his name, Julian, was doing with Francis, through some of the things she was saying to Sophia, I think that Sophia has been able to deduce what maybe happened with his brothers, which of course is that Penguin is responsible for their deaths, and very coldly as well, may I add. It's not even just like there was a little accident. Like, even if he wasn't actively making the choice to kill them when he sort of like did the thing that killed them, because it doesn't necessarily feel like he's choosing to murder them when he locks them in that tunnel kind of area in the sewer system. But when he looks out the window when he's back at home and it's pouring rain, I thought, it seems like he realizes what maybe is happening right now and chooses to just get comfortable and enjoy the movie that he's watching with his mom. Because it really sets up that he is jealous of his brothers getting attention. He's the mama's boy. He wants to be with her. Doesn't like when the others get given responsibilities. He feels like maybe not picked on is the right word, but he certainly has some insecurities about his leg. When they're playing the game in the tunnels, and it's like, it's like a version of hide and go seek with they do with the torches in the tunnel. And because they hide down this ladder, he gets a little bit upset about it and says, it's difficult for me to get down there, and acts out. And that's when he closes the thing. But then, he gets the quote unquote date with his mom by watching the movie that night. And of course, I was coming into this episode thinking there was going to be a whole thing about a top hat, and it ends up just being this simple little detail of like the movie that he apparently always picks to watch, which I want to say this is Fred Astaire. I didn't look it up, but it seems very Fred Astaire-esque, but he's dancing with a top hat, and clearly he's got he likes this look, and it'll explain why he maybe ends up with a top hat when he becomes the full-on Penguin. But this was just a nice little thing, because it was more about the fact that he was sitting enjoying this as he knows he's probably killing these brothers. And there's enough moments where he's looking out the window and the rain's coming down where it feels like, I think he's kind of sussed it at this point. I think he's kind of figured out what maybe's happening, and that he's somehow gotten away with this, and he's solved the problems that he had when he was young. And it just ties into this idea that Penguin will screw over anyone for what he wants. And I think ultimately, I've been talking about how maybe at the end of the season, like the big kind of like punctuation mark on that was going to be him turning on Vic and throwing Vic under the bus. But I think from a dramatic point of view now, I feel like it's going to be the mother. I think his mother and caring about his mother is his weakness, and in a weird way, because she also asked to be euthanized before, I think that's going to give him this sense of, oh, I'm doing what she wanted so he can justify it to himself. But I think what the villains are going to try and do here is I think that they have sussed out some details here about things, and there's a really, really great moment. One of the two conversations with Sophia that I really like this episode. The second one being Gia, the little niece or cousin or whatever the relation exactly is. But the first one is with Francis. And it's a really interesting scene because, once again, much like having Sophia and Eve last episode, this was kind of like, again, this Sophia sitting down with another woman and kind of like hearing what her struggles have been and sort of trying to get to know her. Of course, a little bit more difficult because we've got a character here who is very strong in her opinion of her hatred of the Falcons, kind of mocks Sophia for taking over and just being, what her dad wanted to be, even if she did kill her family or whatever. Like, oh, you're just playing dress up, you're playing pretend. She says, oh, you're going to like dye your hair pink. I'm sure that'll be rebelling against him. Like, you'll really be sticking it to his grave if you do that. I thought those were good moments, right? I think seeing Francis kind of go, like, because she stays pretty focused and, like, she doesn't lose her focus for a long time in that scene, where she's pretty much, the coherent version of her character, where she feels very strongly about Penguin winning and taking over and putting a bullet in Sophia and taking over the whole city, and she's super adamant about it. And of course she has those vulnerable moments where she does her dementia or whatever the exact illness is kicks in, and she does get confused. She starts talking about her boys. But the thing that really stuck to me is Sophia leans in and says, I mean, are his brothers even dead, or are they stuck in some slum tenement somewhere too? And that line really stuck out because, I mean, obviously they're not in a tenement, but effectively he did hide them somewhere. He stuck them somewhere. The whole time, we don't get to see the rest of that night where Penguin's mother realizes that they're truly missing and that something bad really happened. We don't hit that point in the story. We come back to the present day before we get there. But throughout all the times where she initially realizes, oh, they're not coming home, they're late, she's worried, and going through that journey of discovery to realizing, oh my god, they're gone forever, that entire time Penguin had them stashed away somewhere. And I feel like Penguin being forced to admit that to his mother is probably the most potent revenge that Sophia can get. And that's, by the end of the episode, she's like, I want Penguin to suffer. Maybe she realizes that this whole crime family boss thing is still playing by the same rules in the same game that her father was playing, and maybe she isn't like doing just and being free and doing what she wants. That's what she says. She wants to be free. She just wants to be free of it, but she does want Penguin to suffer. And they play on like her wanting revenge by even the way that she does it, by sending a car in. I was so convinced Penguin's mum, her body was going to be in that car towards the end of the episode, because it mirrored Alberto's body being in the car getting into the Falcone home back in episode 1. It was like perfect, and it's why Penguin was so worried. It turns out to be a bomb, of course, so it's a nice little swerve. And we find out that Sophia's taken Francis to the same like nightclub or like a dinner club that she took Penguin to, that Francis took Penguin to. It's that night that Penguin spoke about when he was sort of bonding, strategically, but he was bonding with Sophia by saying, hey, I took my mother out dancing, and that was kind of the night she started to perk up and she started to be her old self again. And we kind of see a little bit of that in the second flashback, post the death of the brothers. And she makes a whole spiel about, oh, you have to give me the life I deserve, and breaks down on the, as they're having a slow dance. All very, weird and borderline Freudian, the way it was all playing out. But the fact that we're going there, it really indicates that Sophia and co have figured something out, and that the way to hurt Penguin more than anything isn't to kill his mother. Maybe they'll still want to do that eventually, but really though, making her hate him, and given the fact that he's always been striving for her attention and he wanted her attention and was feeling like he was not getting enough of it when his brothers were alive, and that's that's the first thing he ever killed for, the first thing that he ever manipulated and was a bastard for, was to win that. It's the one thing he cares about, perhaps more than anything else. The idea that that will be robbed of him forever by Sophia does feel like the perfect revenge, and I think that's what Sophia's driving for. Now, I don't know if they could have figured out the exact details of what happened, but maybe just enough to get a picture of, oh, he's responsible. That is fascinating to me. And I think on some level, Sophia having these scenes with specifically other women, or in Gia's case, a young girl, is this idea that there's an element of not just wanting to be what her father would be in those scenes and trying to actually listen to what the experience of the other person is. More so than the scene with Gia, which I'm about to talk about, but even with Francis, it kind of felt like there was a sort of level of trying to understand and in some ways even respect what Francis has been through and why, the way she is. And when Francis like reacts and hits her at one point, Sophia like holds the guard back and is like, no, let's play out, like let's give her some I don't think Sophia just instantly hates her guts because she happens to be Penguin's mother, although there is that little stretch where she kind of implies that, oh, maybe Penguin was turned into a monster by you. I think we on some level know that's not true because he was a monster to his brothers, and it didn't seem like the mother was striving for that. So I think she's looking for an answer that's easy to explain, Sophia, but the answer is actually a bit more just sinister than that he was already kind of a monster. Now, whether or not we'll get any exploration as to if that came from somewhere or if he just was that way, and that's the evil tragedy of it all, there's stuff to think about. But of course, when we see him with his brothers, like the big brother's been asked to drop off like a folder or something to this gangster, and he's very hesitant to do it. He doesn't like being around the violence. He doesn't like being around these gangsters. Whereas young Oz, clearly does. He's like, no, he's a gangster. I know what he is. He tries to say hello to him and sort of be buddy to him as they walk past. Something that his big brother clearly isn't endorsing or thinks is a good idea. So, no, very, very fascinating to see that. And the performances in those flashbacks are very good. Very, very good. And of course, the ultimate irony, of course, being that same, like, I don't know, tunnel or tank or whatever it is with a big metal door, that's the same place that Penguin goes to survive the blast of the bomb at the end of the episode. He actually is saved by the same door that killed his brothers, which is just, all levels of poetic by the end of the episode. The other scene with Sophia, though, that I really want to talk about is the scene with Gia. There's a moment early on where Jillian comes in, the therapist character, and says, hey, I've got like an old colleague or whoever who works at this children's hospital, and that's where young Gia, the survivor of the of the Falcone gassing, the little girl, where she's been staying, and apparently she wants to talk to the police. And the way that Jillian's bringing this up, as if it's a concern, like, oh, she might need to be dealt with, immediately, like, I was thinking about how Sophia was hearing this, and I was thinking about effectively what this is, because he even says it. He says it's a loose end, but I was immediately thinking, wait, are we pushing Sophia into a position where she might have to, like, consider getting rid of that loose end? Where is she going to have to be put into a position where she might have to kill an innocent girl, when her whole thing in the first place was that she obviously discovered her father was killing innocent women, including her own mother. And that just, she says, I'll take care of it myself, because Jillian says, I'll go talk to her. And it's almost like Jillian's getting into man mode, where it's like, oh, this is a loose end that needs to be dealt with. What needs to be done. I'll go and talk, I'll prove myself by going to talk to her. But Sophia says, no, I'll do it myself. Jillian can go use his therapy skills on Francis. So she goes to the hospital, and she has these little flashbacks going to the room of Arkham because of the way the hall and the doors are lined up and whatnot. But she goes in with her, and I thought this scene was fascinating. It was such an interesting scene because, like I said, Sophia is faced with this situation, and she's kind of in a catch-22 almost, because if she kills Gia, Not that I think she was there in that scene to kill her. Like, obviously, I think she was always here in this scene to try and deal with this peacefully by convincing her of something, which is the other part of the catch-22. But the catch-22 is either she kills Sophia and she's killed an innocent girl, which makes her more of the hangman than she ever was before. It means she's doing exactly what her father did to her mother and what her family have done to multiple people, specifically women, over the years. So obviously, that doesn't work. But the other end of it, though, is her trying to talk her out of what she thinks she saw. And it turns out she saw a gas mask in Sophia's bag and suspects that Sophia was behind what happened because of that. By trying to talk her out of it and saying that it was an accident and try to convince her that Sophia is innocent and would never do that, and even the idea that you'll be strong and you'll go and do this, and trying to like perk her up, try to be supportive of her, that's also hypocritical because that's exactly what her father did to her when her mother died. She was told this wasn't murder. This was, it wasn't an accident. It was suicide, they said. But she was lied to about what caused it, and she was told that like her father would be there for her and that she's important to him and she's going to take over the family, then whatever, like throughout her life from that point on. And Sophia lying to this girl and saying, hey, this was an accident, it was tragic, there's nothing to be worried about, and sort of feeding these lies into her is doing exactly to her what happened to herself when she was a child. And I think she knows that. I think the performance here from Milioti during this scene is fantastic because I think you see the pain of playing that out where she's trying to convince her and she knows she's being a hypocrite and she's doing exactly what happened to her. I think you can see it in the performance the entire time. It's so good. And it actually leads to kind of a turn in her tactic, effectively. She never admits that she killed them. She didn't quite do that. But she does offer up some truth. She admits that she's glad they're dead. She tells her they were awful, they were evil, and you deserve better than anything this family was ever going to give you. She offers her some truth. Some more truth than she was ever given at the very least. But the part that really stuck out to me, though, is when she sort of leaned in and says, no, I loved your parents. Because it just sounded like exactly what Carmine would say. I loved your mother. I'm sad she's gone. This is a tragedy. We know she didn't love her parents. She hated her parents. She hated her whole family by the time she killed them. So I think those realizations, and then her not being able to live with being exactly who her father was, which is then, of course, is just a little slice of the whole pie, which is this idea that everything she's doing by trying to take over the crime family and operate Gotham and be the new head of the crime system, that is also just trying to be her father. I almost think there's a moment of self-realization here that by doing this, she's realizing that everything else she's doing is just becoming her father in some way. Even if she's technically doing some things a little bit differently, she's still playing into the framework that was left behind by what her father was. Sorry. So well done, I thought, in this scene. It's interesting because obviously Gia isn't, unlike the other scenes that Sophia has with these other characters, where there's a lot of bouncing back and you feel like you get a lot out of the other character. Gia here is more of a blank slate because Gia is not so much a full character, as more just sort of hey, she's a young Sophia, and it's like Sophia's realizing what she's doing to a young version of herself in some ways. So she's more of a blank slate, but it doesn't matter because you could almost just give Cristin Milioti a rock to act off. And this is not to say that the actress playing Gia does a bad job. I mean, it's just that it's not that important in the context of the scene, to be honest. It's more about Milioti's or Sophia's reacting to her, realizing what she's saying to her, and changing tack because she can't live with what she's actually saying. And she's not told her the full truth, of course, but at the end of the scene, when she goes out the room, like, she breaks down, she starts crying. The emotional strain of this is hitting her. This is something that her father would see as weakness, of course, but this is something that maybe she'll learn to respect. That makes her better and different, that she does have this empathy, she does have this understanding, and doesn't want to be exactly that, even though she does very much want to see Penguin suffer. But Penguin did kill her brother, the one person who was there for her. And of course, Penguin is the one person that's there for Francis, but that's kind of his own design, pretty much. He put himself in that position because he wanted to be the only person that was there for her. So I think there's a lot of interesting dynamics at play with this. I really don't I don't think I see a world where Sophia even wants to kill Francis, to be honest, at this point. I think she sees a way to hurt Penguin that's way harsher than that, and I don't think she would even like. I think it would be more satisfying for her for Francis to stay alive and keep hating him upon realizing what he's done than anything else. So really interesting stuff with all that. Speaking of, we didn't get a lot of crowbar action. Clearly, Vic did get hit over the head. In fact, he disappears for the whole episode after that. Oz tells him to go build his army, which I assume means the other gangs that they made alliances with, which I assume will play into things in the finale. But Vic is missing for the vast majority of this episode, other than that one quick appearance. But I mean, other than that, of course, we have the set pieces to mention. Which is, Sal coming, getting Penguin, beating him up with a golf club, ultimately going down into the lair and saying, hey, you all work for us now. Penguin's a dead man. They're going to take Penguin back to Sophia's and take care of him there. But of course, Penguin's men are actually kind of loyal at this point and are able to fight back. One of the guys pulls the power cord for the lights, and they kind of strike, because ultimately it's only Sal and like 2 or 3 other guys, and it's just a room full of Penguins guys. So the big thing here though is that Sal goes after Penguin. He doesn't really care about anyone else. He just wants Penguin. He wants revenge. And Penguin riled him up as well. Right before the lights were turned off, he started talking about the smell of his burning wife, which, understandably might have got under his skin a little bit. Interestingly, Sal dies kind of like on his own. Like, he's fighting Penguin and has maybe some kind of heart attack or something like that, which they did set up, to be fair. I'd forgotten about this at first, but when I was thinking about it, they did set up that he was taking pills for something back when we saw him in prison. So this idea that he's getting really... Obviously, he's in a state of very great distress right now. He's so angry, and he's beaten a man to death for murdering his wife. If you have heart problems, it's probably a good time when your blood pressure is going to start flying through the roof. So it does make some sense, and it is somewhat set up. But what I actually really liked about this, though, is the way Penguin kind of, like, enjoys his victory. Like, there may be like a small second where he's almost disappointed that he didn't actually just win, like, by winning. But yeah, he kind of looks down at his body, he fires some shots into him and says that he won, and it's almost like he's trying to like talk himself in, like almost like lie to himself and say, hey, I won that fight, but he didn't win the fight. He just got insanely lucky. Like, Sal was winning. Penguin's a little weasel who's just weaseled out one more time, and here we are. So he's getting all of his men ready. He makes a deal with Sophia over the phone. Sophia, they do a little trick here where you think she's in the car. I never actually did think she was in the car. It seemed like they were playing with our expectations here, so I kind of got that she wasn't. But I did think the mother's body was in the car because it was so perfectly mirroring episode 1, like I said, with Alberto being driven into the Falcone house. Penguin's mother being driven into his lair just felt like the perfect mirror of that. So even he, I think, was thinking that, and that's what makes the moment really cool. And of course, all of his men are dead, because he doesn't tell them that there's a bomb, I don't think. He just, like, hobbles and runs and gets behind that metal door. It seems like the rest of the men are dead. And credit to the effects team. I wouldn't say this is a super effects heavy show. It's probably more than I realized, though, because they probably do a lot of work on the cityscapes and things like that to make it look more like Gotham as opposed to like a real place. But we get like a view above ground of what happens to the streets above when this bomb goes off. The ground kind of sinks, and there's a lot of like debris going up and whatnot. I thought it looked pretty good for a TV show. I did think this looked a cool effect. Maybe I'll spot more faults in it if I see it again. But on a first pass, it certainly was a pleasing big visual effect to my eye. So the episode ends with Penguin getting nabbed by the corrupt cop that Sophia had working for her before, as we see Sophia taking Penguin's mother into that same club that she had taken her son to long ago. And that is actually when Penguin is waking up, that we get our second flashback of when that happened. And because he was kind of taking care of her, bringing her dinner, stuff like that. And she came out in a fancy dress and said, we're going out. And it felt like this was a change. And, because we've heard enough of this time period from the story before to understand kind of the context of this moment. So, yeah, I feel like that location has been picked by Sophia for a very, very important, or a very specific reason, I should say. So, I'm excited. I think all of the time we've spent with Penguin and his mother, there's been some good stuff in it, but I would say that early on, I definitely felt it was the least compelling part of the show. I think all of it's about to pay off. Arguably already paid off in this episode, because I think by far this is the most I've enjoyed all the stuff with the mother. Between getting the actual flashbacks where we get to see her in her when she was actually a mother to all the children, and seeing how she was with Penguin before she changed and when she was at her full health, and then seeing Francis play off of Sophia and how that's actually playing out. I'm actively anticipating now this realization that she might get, this idea that she might hate Penguin for what he's done, and then Penguin, killing her. Now the question is, though, I don't even think it's a question if Penguin kills his mother or not next episode. I think it definitely happens. The question I have, though, is does he do it before she's about to get the answer? Does he shoot her instead of admitting what he did? Or does she find out and he gets to see how much she hates him first and then kills her out of, I don't know if shame would necessarily be the right word, but, killing her because he can't have her around like this, and convincing himself that it's what she wanted anyway. I can see them playing with the moment and how and why he does it. Which reminds me actually, back when Vic was woken up at the start of the episode, Vic, when he sort of comes to, starts apologizing, and Penguin just quickly goes, F your shame, go get me an army. That idea of him just saying F your guilt, it just moving on, feels, it kind of fits what Penguin's been, and it fits what he did to his brothers. Does he put that into practice with his mother next episode? I could see it. I could see it. So all of this, I think, was pretty compelling stuff. So while I get the critique that we're kind of in a similar place in terms of, okay, Sophia's got the mother, how's that going to play out? That's technically how the last episode ended. But I think the context of it is very different this episode. I think it's more compelling this episode because it's not just, oh, she might hurt her, right? She might hurt Vic. This is a bit more nuanced. There's a bit more going on here with what she's actually concocted and where this is going. So, well, I kind of get the surface level complaint that it's kind of ended similar to the last episode in terms of the plot direction. I feel like so much was added in this episode, and it was a relatively short episode by this show's standards. This was only 45 minutes. And this show has typically been that full 60-minute kind of runtime. I actually greatly appreciate that they deviated from their normal runtime. I think HBO sometimes suffers, and maybe they're finally getting with the program that they can just have various lengths without having to hit an arbitrary time. Just purely because I do think it hurts the pacing in some episodes of HBO shows. This was nice that they didn't try and stretch this out to 60 minutes. They had enough story for this amount of time, and this is what they did. I kind of respect that. So, yeah. That said, though, I didn't know this when I talked about last week's episode, but I also saw a lot of people not really like last week's episode. I saw a lot of people saying that 5 and 6 were a big downturn for the show, and that it was 2-week episodes in a row. Well, I did say 5 was the weakest. I would agree with that. I think 6 was one of the best, for reasons that I went into heavily last time. So, clearly I'm not always going to agree with the consensus on the internet anyway, so yeah, your mileage may vary, I guess, but I think what I am enjoying about the show, this episode was delivering on, and so and last week's episode was delivering on as well. Now, the other question: we've had an explosion, an entire city's kind of an entire street or multiple streets, a street crossing, is in disarray because of this explosion. It's possible that Batman's away. I think they've implied that maybe even in some interviews that he's kind of out of the city right now, and that's why he's not getting involved. However, they would be saying that if there was going to be a surprise cameo, and if we're going to get a cameo, it's going to be in the finale. I don't think we can rule it out. And when I say that, I don't even mean that we're going to see Robert Pattinson. I'm not even saying that. But a silhouette of the Batman, I could see that being in the finale. I could see, like, there have been some big showdown happening, and like bad guys start getting like knocked out left and right around the environment, and we see maybe a silhouette. I'm thinking about how, like, in the comic book Gotham Central, like, Batman was not a main character in that book, but you'd occasionally see him like on the rooftop or at a window or something. You know, he was kind of a ghostly presence that, but none of our main characters ever really interacted with him, so it never became scenes of characters talking to him, or at least not much anyway. I could see that kind of thing where you just get like a silhouette of like the Batman in the distance, and that'll be it, right? But the idea that he's like this event, like this explosion, everything that's going on, there's too many like things happening now. He's starting to intervene, and it maybe forces Penguin and some of the others to like hightail it or something. Like I could see them doing something as a little tease right towards the end of the episode. Which is not to say that I need it or anything. I just, if they're going to do it, it'll be in the finale. And they can do it without even having the actor if they want to. So I could see it happening, but we'll see. It's not a big deal either way if it does or it doesn't. I think there's ways where it could work. The idea of Batman just being a presence in the background, I think fits his character so much anyway. If you know, so it's not like anyone came to this show for like, oh, a Batman show. That's not what it is. It's not what it ever was, and that's fine. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But I'm excited for the finale. I'm excited to see how all this pays off. You know, the one critique I've kind of had throughout is that Julian, even though his profession obviously was important in this episode for maybe getting some answers out of Francis, or, you know, realizing something from her, that character is kind of the weird element to me in a lot of ways. And part of it may just be that I don't like the actor that much, to be honest. I think Theo Rossi, no matter everything I see him in, there's something about him that is just, I just see someone acting. I never like see the role that he's playing. I just see someone putting on this gravelly voice, or not even a gravelly voice. That's not quite right, but like he's got this specific voice in the way he speaks, and the way he stares at people. I don't know. I always see the acting, and it just, like, I never feel quite convinced by it for whatever reason. So maybe it's just that. Maybe there is actually some underwritten elements to this character. I did think it was interesting, though, in this episode that he kind of represented a few times, like, that he was presenting ideas to Sophia that felt more of the old guard. He does ultimately say, hey, what do you want? It doesn't matter what anyone else wanted before you. What do you want for yourself? But it did feel like he, at a couple of points, was suggesting things like, hey, that Gia girl needs to be taken care of. It kind of felt like he was almost pushing the patriarchal gangster rules or mantra onto her, even though that's not what he was to begin with. But clearly, I think some of that appeals to him, and it's why he's so excited to be here or something. I don't know. Anyway, maybe there'll be something more to analyze with him in the next episode. I'm not really expecting it, though. I feel like he's a side character who's served most of his purpose at this point. But fascinated to see where we go with the conclusion to all the stuff we've been doing. So yeah, let me know what you think of the episode in the comments below. You can, of course, like, subscribe, all that stuff helps out a bunch. And of course, you can support by going over to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and supporting over there and help keeping all the reviews coming, both here on MailFuzz TV, but all the movie podcasts over in MailFuzz Movies. Check those out if you haven't. But that is me. So thank you very much. I will see you guys next time. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?